Hello YouTube, it is your boy B3 here, back with another kicking graphic novel review. Got a bit of an unexpected one today. You know, I didn't think I was going to start reading this run again, but it is DC Universe Rebirth, Justice League Volume 4, Endless. Yeah, I read the first 3 volumes. I think I've only reviewed the first one though. But I read the first 3 volumes in the Justice League versus Suicide Squad and stuff. And then I kind of stopped reading it because this Justice League run just wasn't impressing me. It really just wasn't impressing me. Nothing about it screamed great. You know, I liked the new 52 one better. There were Justice League runs before that I liked better. It just kind of felt like every book was building up to something, and that it didn't really have its own character. And there are parts of this book that feel that way as well. Like every single book was just a prequel to something that's coming. I'm going to read you the back of this book here. The time has run out for the Justice League. The Justice League is dead, Manhattan is destroyed, and somehow it's all Flash's fault. A mysterious attacker keeps targeting the Flash and those around him, blaming Flash for his family's death. But besides doling out death and destruction, the attacker's mysterious weapon provides one more thing: a second chance, and a third, and more. Every time Flash comes into contact with the weapon's energy, he finds himself flung further back in time. But can Flash and Batman solve the mystery and save the city before time catches up to the destruction once more? Plus, the Justice League faces off against microscopic invaders, crazed super soldiers, and Mera, Queen of the Sea! Y'all know I'm a Mera fanboy, so can't wait to talk about that one. Writer-artist Brian Hitch is joined by guest creators including Shea Fontana, sorry I just chugged a Coke, Dan Abnett, big fan by the way, Ian Churchill, Tom DeFalco, Philippe Briones, and Tom Dernick. As the world's greatest heroes face challenges they can't overcome with might alone. Collects issues 20 through 25. You can get it for about $16.99. Physical, you know, paperback. If you want this one, I kind of would recommend Kindle. It's not really laid out in a way that's real fancy or anything, so reading it on Kindle, I don't think you'd miss out on anything. There's some books like Batman White Knight and stuff that I would definitely recommend reading physical, but this one is probably fine to read digital, guided view and stuff. So, the first story that it said, and I actually liked this story. I thought I wouldn't, but then I did. I actually did. So, Flash keeps watching Jessica die over and over after they, like, have coffee and stuff. And there's this guy with a big energy device who's like, the Justice League killed my family, so now I'm going to kill the Justice League. That's justice to me in my grief. That makes sense to me. And Flash and Jessica earlier were talking about the different types of villains. Like, they're the kind that are already egotistical maniacs, and they just get the power, and that egotistical mania kind of just increases exponentially. They're the kind who are tragic, and like they're damaged, and they don't feel like they're villains or mean to be villains, but they are villains. And they're the kind who think they're doing the right thing, or are even doing the right thing, but have a kind of ends don't justify the means. But every time Flash goes back in time after coming into contact with this device, his Speed Force reacts to it, and he goes back in time after it explodes and destroys the whole city. Now, every time he gets shocked back in time, the events change just a tiny bit. And then there's this like big blue monster that the Justice League keeps fighting, and it's the monster on the cover. Well, it's not a monster, it's an alien, but it's on the cover. So you thought it would be a big deal, but it's actually not really a big deal for the volume. Justice League beats that, and eventually they figure out the guy was just a businessman who was trying to create this like anti-gravity engine and harness this alien power source that Argus gave them to better humanity, but his business partner set it to detonate, but it wouldn't destroy the device, and then some, I think it was the Chinese, he was going to sell the device to illegally. He was doing all this corporate espionage and stuff, and he planned mass murder. But the Justice League got him. Batman and Flash did some investigating and figured it out before it all happened and before all those people died. And they stopped the guy from ever becoming a villain in the first place, and as it turns out, that device was actually the heart of this alien. He called it the Star Heart, which is a name drop, and I don't feel like it's actually a Star Heart, but still. And then he put it in his chest, and he was like, sorry, I went berserk on you, Justice League. My reason goes away when my heart's been gone too long. I sent it out to search some systems and it was gone too long because you guys captured it. Sorry, I know it's all a big misunderstanding. I'm just going to leave now. And then he gave this little warning about, hey, protect your borders, because that's what he is. He's like a border protection sentinel. He meant like the planetary borders or the dimensional borders or something. So he's like, something evil's coming. At the end of every story from the beginning of this run, the villains or someone has gone, something evil's coming, we gotta stop it. And then they kind of just forgot about it. And there's one where Jessica and Simon are destroying some asteroids that were headed towards the Earth. And this volume actually really heavily focuses on Jessica. Simon, some too, but mostly Jessica. And it's about her insecurity in the League. She doesn't feel like she belongs there. She never really has felt like she belongs there. And then it turns out she and Simon actually brought all these microorganisms on board that were on the asteroids, and they were like, that's sloppy. Hal Jordan wouldn't have made that mistake. Jon Stewart wouldn't have made that mistake. They wouldn't have brought all this stuff on board. So they have to quarantine themselves there, and Lois, Damien, and John are all there too. And Lois is the one that really figures most of the stuff out. And then the Queen, like, burrows into Jessica, and the Hive, like, forms a Jessica and starts mimicking her movements, and Jessica calming down and getting control over her anxiety is the key to defeating it. And then the next story is also about Jessica. These kind of, I don't think they're white supremacists, but they're definitely far-right terrorists, are attacking Middle Eastern cities and killing innocent people, because they're like, there's a possibility that one of you could become a terrorist, so I'm going to become a terrorist and kill you before you can create terrorists, even though my killing you would of course make people vengeful like I am, and then they would become terrorists as well. Obviously he didn't think it through very well. But Jessica accidentally really scared this little girl, and so Jessica was like, I don't want people to fear me. Kind of like Batman. Remember Batman in New Frontier? He tries to save that kid, and then the kid's like, oh shit, this bat monster's gonna suck my blood out and shit. Or in that Batman Beyond where he had to show his identity in the quote-unquote finale. Kind of like that. But they did eventually beat the guy. It took a while. Jessica really had to use her head because he had this energy shield that absorbed anything that hit him, and then he could fire back with even more force, which was pretty cool. And you know, they had like they really were far-right terrorists, because they were like, sorry, I'm not politically correct, blah blah blah, you know, real topical villains. But she like trapped him in an hourglass thing with all this sand and dirt, so that he couldn't really move around and add a lot of kinetic energy to his suit, and then she stopped all his missiles and etc. Jessica really kicked ass. Some of my favorite DC comic ladies really get highlighted in this book, because Wonder Woman is also really at her best in this book, even though she's not really highlighted any. She's a great voice of wisdom the entire book. And then this next story is about Mera, Queen of Atlantis. Well, she's not Queen of Atlantis anymore. I believe I reviewed Aquaman Volume 3. I believe I have already reviewed Aquaman Volume 3. And in Aquaman Volume 3, something called the Crown of Thorns creates a dome over Atlantis. In this story about immigration and politics, etc. I feel like all good Atlantis stories are political stories in DC Comics, because they have always really had a strained relationship with surface dwellers. And then they kind of made Atlantis made a terrorist king and outed Arthur. But then the Crown of Thorns trapped Arthur in Atlantis, and Mera was trapped on the outside, so she couldn't help him in that story arc, really. Well, since he was trapped in Atlantis, they couldn't very well have him appearing in the Justice League book, because that would be a continuity problem. And there's a bit more of a focus on fixing continuity problems and stuff in Rebirth, because New 52 had a shit ton of continuity problems. And they also want to bring they wanted to bring a bunch of stuff back into Rebirth continuity, and they eventually did. So, there's all this water receding away from the dome around Atlantis, and Mera is just crashing tidal wave onto this Crown of Thorns dome on Atlantis to try to get it to burst. But she's almost destroying coastal cities while she's trying to do it. So the Justice League, you know, tries to stop her. And they were going to talk to her first. I know lots of the time Justice League can be known to hit first, ask questions later, which is not something that like Superman, Flash, and Wonder Woman usually do in their solo titles. They oftentimes try to talk to people first, but in the Justice League book, threats are so massive that they can't really afford to do that. But in this book, they actually did try to talk to her first. They were like, Mara, what the fuck? And she kind of attacked them first, because they were asking questions, because they didn't know Aquaman had been overthrown, because they hadn't seen him in a while. And Wonder Woman said, Mara, calm down and let us help you. And she was about to say more, and then Mara just hit all of them with water. And she really kicked the Justice League's ass. She didn't stop fighting them until they told her she was almost destroying the coast. And she was like, oh shit, I'm sorry. So they took her up to the Watchtower, talked to her a bit, and then she joined the Justice League, which is like a dream come true for me. Like, what a lineup, huh? I really like this lineup, because Cyborg is my favorite Justice League member. At least he has been since like 2011, because he's easily the most interesting, and the New 52 Justice League books really focused on Cyborg. And then I really liked this first Rebirth lineup because it had a better Superman, because New 52 Superman was shit, but I love Rebirth Superman because he's really just previous continuity soups. And I love this Flash and this Batman. Simon Baz and Jessica Cruz, I adore them both, especially Jessica. I really relate to her. And Rebirth Wonder Woman is incredible too. And then you put my girl Mara on the team, because Aquaman was the one that I could have done without. I was like, I could live without Aquaman, that's fine. And then the cover art for the next one. I just want to show you this. I marked this in the book so I could show it to you. The cover art for the next one has all the team members on it, but Mara has kind of an Aquaman outfit on and blonde hair. Why did they make that creative choice for the cover art to like fuse Aquaman and Mara into one character? That doesn't make sense to me. Let me know what you think of that in the comments below, because I'm really interested. And the next story is about this character called Shirak, who is really cool looking, like this flame dude. He has this infection that turns people on any planet he lands on into a bunch of minions, and it took the Green Lantern Corps in their entirety to defeat him before. But then part of him landed on Earth, and it became a new version of him. And Batman was talking to the redheaded chick from Volume 3, who was kind of a stupid villain, and she's talking about, oh, there's this cycle of rebirth. They dropped the word rebirth way too much in this issue, by the way. So she's like, oh, there's all this rebirth stuff, and our universe keeps rebooting, and everyone's the same, but not exactly the same when it happens. And it's like, she's just talking about, like, franchise reboots. Trying to explain them in a continuity way. And, and it was really weird. And all she did was talk the whole time. And Batman just talked. It was just a lot of back and forth, her talking to Batman, setting up something that's coming. I'm not sure if she was setting up, like... And it's really unclear what she's setting up, too. It seems like she's setting up Doomsday Clock in this book, but in the other books, it could have really been anything. It could have been Dark Knight's Metal they were talking about. It could have been Doomsday Clock they were talking about. They could have been talking about the Source Wall dying and all this stuff. They could have been talking about any of that. But in this book, I feel like it is specifically talking about Dr. Manhattan. But yeah, Simon's dealing with some of his insecurities in this book instead. It's mostly about Simon and Cyborg. Simon really uses his head in this one, too. Because he and Jessica aren't the most powerful Green Lanterns. Not because they don't have the will. I mean, Jessica's will isn't the strongest, but she has, stronger will than average, obviously, because she's a Green Lantern. And Simon's will is, like, crazy strong. Like, Hal Jordan level strong, if not stronger. But they're just novices, so they're not sure how to really direct that will like Hal Jordan or John Stewart or Guy Gardner can. But he figures out a way to kind of rewrite this dude's DNA and everything and make everyone something different using Vic's thing, because it's not... It kind of looks like the dude is a magic dude, but it turns out he's a science dude, and it's all like computers and shit, so Cyborg can turn everybody back. It was okay, I guess. Like, it wasn't really anything impressive. Once again, it seemed like that whole issue was just there to hint at something in the future, which I feel like is the point of almost every single damn issue in this run of Justice League so far. I've only read through Volume 4, but I have Volumes 5 and 6 sitting right here next to me. I'm looking right at them, and I'll get to them soon, because I do want to finish this run of Justice League. I kind of was putting it off. So, final thoughts on this book. It is several stories, which is fine. I mean, not every story has to be a giant thing. I really liked the kind of Groundhog Day Flash story. I thought that was fun. And I really did enjoy it. That one was like 2 issues, I think. 2 or 3. Yeah, it was 2 issues. And then the one with Jessica and the microorganisms was a good look at Jessica's character and insecurities. I really liked it, too. The villain was really nothing, but it wasn't about fighting a villain. It was about fighting her inner demons. Then there was a pretty topical one right after that, also with Jessica, also fighting her insecurities. I feel like maybe those 2 issues should have been spaced out, like maybe not one after another, because they're about the same thing, really. Like, maybe you could have put the one with Simon between them. But it's fine. Or you could have put the Mare one between them too, because Aquaman didn't really do anything in any of these issues. Like, he barely spoke in any of them except the first one, where he was like, I sense that this being is dying, and that's pretty much all he said in the first issue. And then he didn't talk for the rest of the issues, and then he was gone for the last 2. The Mare one was kick-ass, and then the last one was whatever. So that's it, Justice League Volume 4 Endless. If you want to pick it up, you know, that's what Barnes & Noble, Amazon, etc. are for. Thank you all very much for your support. Remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. Check out all the cool links in the description below. Facebook, Twitter, etc. And I will be seeing you all later. I did a little half dab. You didn't see it, but it happened.